Hello, everybody. Can we start out? Yes. I'm not the teacher. I'm the practical guy. I'm the assistant. I will moderate a little bit. Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah. And I was already in doubt where the toilets were, but they're on the right in the corridor here. Yeah. The next 90 minutes we will be together in this room here, and we will listen to Jonas Lieberkind, professor, about democracy in and through education. And I've seen his program, and there will be a little break after 45 minutes, so about 40-50 minutes we'll have a little break, catch up afterwards, and we have to finish at 3:45. So that's our little program here. And we will end up with a sort of conclusion and perspectives. And before we leave the room, you must fill out your takeaway. You have each fill in a takeaway in your folder. So the last is finishing 5 minutes. I want all the students here to fill out the takeaways to bring to those who organize this conference. My name is Simon Finderup, and I'm a folk high school teacher. And I actually teach on the school just next door, over there. That is one of the folk high schools in Denmark. But I will participate more or less like the rest of you in here, because Jonas Lieberkind, he is organizing it all by himself. So thank you for that. I'm really looking forward to that. Thank you.
So, in fact, I'm an associated professor. I'm not quite a professor.
Okay.
In Denmark, there's levels here, so I'm just a normal researcher. So, and I'm from Aarhus University. And in fact, it's situated in Copenhagen. It's always disturbing when people are trying to figure out where you are from. But I'm from Copenhagen, and my department is situated in Copenhagen. So, well, let me tell you about my research before I start this presentation. So, what I'm doing, or what I'm focused, or what I'm interested in when I'm researching is political education and political socialization. So I work with these themes both theoretically and empirically, but mostly my research is a mix of both, and you will see that later on. So in the last couple of years I've been more or less interested in, especially in the complex aim of primary and lower secondary education to prepare students to undertake their roles as democratic citizens. So that's what we are going to discuss today. And hopefully you will discuss with me. I think this is a workshop, so I'm pretty much interested in hearing what you have to say about my questions here. So I have a lot of questions, and I'm not sure I can answer them myself, so that's why I'm looking forward to discuss with you. So in this workshop, I will discuss with you democracy in and through education, and furthermore try to explore the role of togetherness in this context. And my assumption is, my starting point is that education, democracy and togetherness are each other's preconditions. So that's where I start, at least. So discussing citizenship education, democratic school system and so on is also a discussion concerning community, solidarity, the teachers and the students' sense of togetherness. And that's where I start. So, but what I found in my research on primary and lower education in Denmark was that these concepts, democracy, togetherness, were rather complicated. So that's what I'm trying to figure out, how to understand these words and concepts. So what I found in the Danish schools was a certain form of democratic togetherness. Normally we just speak of togetherness, but I found a certain form of togetherness, and that's what I'm trying, will try to elaborate on today. And I found what I have not expected to find. To be honest, I have not even thought of it as a possibility. So, and furthermore, I found a form of togetherness which I still don't know how to understand. So that's where you come in. So I hope you will discuss this with me. So the intention with the workshop is also to explore and discuss with you this kind of democratic togetherness in and through education, and I believe that these surroundings are the right place to discuss this. At least it was in these kind of surroundings, these kind of discussions in Denmark at least were founded. But my research is a starting point in today is a large-scale comparative quantitative comparison. So that's where I start. So I will present to you some interesting finding of this assessment. It's called ICCS, an International Civic and Citizenship Education Study is the name of it. So I will start with try to present some of the findings here. So ICCS provides a clear impression that the Danish primary and lower secondary schools is grounded in a long-standing educational tradition that enhances knowledge of social, political, and democratic themes, and furthermore motivates a high degree of togetherness based on open and inviting classroom environment at school. So that sounds very good, but it's going to be more confusing than this, because ICCS also reveals that the Danish student hardly experience any actual influence on decision-making processes in school. ICCS reveals a huge and remarkable contrast between an open and motivating classroom climate and the student's perception of influence at school. In no other countries can such a huge divergence be found. I will elaborate on that. But how to understand this and interpret this remarkable contrast between an open classroom climate and inviting classroom climate, and then the student's perception of a very low influence. So that is my question of today. So just briefly, this is a program of the workshop. I will start by presenting some findings of ICCS, this huge, large-scale assessment. The assessment is in two parts. A part which is a cognitive test. You're testing the students' knowledge of social and political and democratic issues. And furthermore, there's some questionnaires concerning, among others, the students' perception of the classroom environment and the students' perception of influence at school. After I've presented some of the tables, scales, I will discuss with you how to understand those, because they are quite, they're quite hard to understand. And then I will continue with my own interpretation of it. I will call it the complexity, because it is complex. This open classroom versus the low influence. How I try to explain that is to talk about the educationalization of the modern world, and I will leave that later on. And that ends in another discussion, and that is, what is the right balance between the educational and political sense of togetherness? At the moment, it's quite hard to understand, but hopefully it will be a bit more clear in the end. And that is where we are supposed to end our discussions. So, I have a bit problems with my throat, so please be aware. You can always say something if you want to. It's, so let me start with this. Yes. Well, I think we should start with this discussion. So perhaps we will say something in this here, because I think it's very important that you will join in, and I will hear who you are and what you have to say about this before I'll start interpreting the things. So what I want you to do is just for 5 to 10 minutes to discuss with each other, perhaps on these tables you're sitting with. And of course you have to make a short presentation of yourself, and that could be rather interesting for us, also for each other to hear who you are and how come you are here. But what I want you to discuss is, what is democratic education? That's how I'm starting. what I'm trying to figure out, that's the balance between becoming, that democratic education is a part of becoming an adult or becoming a citizen. But you are not right now, as a student, you are not a citizen. You have no influence, you are just trying to fulfill the teacher's learning aims. Or should you understand democratic education, you can also say this is education, democratic education through teaching. Or should you understand it as the student is already a citizen, a person who's being a citizen with influence on learning materials, pedagogical methods, timetables, school rules, and so on. So that's the balance we're going to discuss today. And I'll pretty much hear you a lot, and I'm looking forward to hear what you say on this. And in the end of this, how do you see and understand togetherness in the context of democracy? So before I start elaborating on these things, it would be interesting to hear your comments on this. And perhaps you should discuss on your round tables, and we can, just for 5 minutes, and then we can put up something in the last 5 minutes.
Okay. You all understand the difference between the two perspectives here? Great. Perfect. Okay. That's amazing.
One question, the specific age group we're talking about?
Yes.
Because you are investigation base, what age group was that?
This is grade 8 students. So this is a huge international comparative study. It gathered data from more than 140,000 8th-grade students around the world. 38 countries are participating, 5,300 schools, and in 8 countries. So it's a huge large-scale tool which is investigating 14, 15-year-old students in 8th grade. Yes.
How does the governmental schools I truly believe in being, what you were saying over there, you were saying, I believe in being, I believe in living this day as I should live my life, because the life of the
My name is Laura.
Yes.
We have grades 3 through 7 and we're working a lot with teacher school and togetherness. Well, the teaching is togetherness. We work in projects, so the schools should have projects, research on togetherness in the context of the children. They have their own council, they have decisions about the things that teach.
Responsible for choices. And if you choose to learn all day by being in the play, you can't get into the class. And if you choose to learn from class, you have to do all the homework.
But how to do it?
How do you see it?
You can continue, right?
And something quite interesting.
Yeah, I was just making the point that for me the becoming or being are not either or, but that there are two states which build upon each other mutually. Because if you come into this world, it's so
Scores 576 together, of course, with Finnish and the South Korean, which always scores pretty good in these kinds of tests. But the interesting thing is that the Danish students are some of the most knowledgeable, skilled students in this test. And you can see there's a lot of countries here. I haven't had the time to translate all the countries, but hopefully you can understand the countries.
Sorry, are you saying that the cognitive tests
Yes.
were about these things that you
About these things.
about those things?
There was like 80 items, 80 questions, measuring the students' knowledge and analytical skills in different ways.
I need an example. What did you ask about?
There's a lot of which I can't really remember the questions, but it's how is it? perhaps it's describing a situation. One person, a student, is going into a shop, buying a shoe, and you have to argue, how come you buy this shoe and not the other one? And the answers could be like, you're doing it because it's fair trade, or you do it because they are cheapest, they are the cheapest. These kinds of questions. And then there's questions about who is governing the country, what is democracy, and you can choose between four. So it's analytical questions and it's facts questions, and a mixture of everything. But they are pretty difficult. I could just come up with some easy ones, but it is very difficult questions. I have heard it's difficult even for us to answer those questions. And in Denmark, they are very good at this. This result, this scale score is quite high, and it's hard to explain what this is, 1 point is in this, but you can see the scale and how the Danish students is ranked.
Jonas, can I ask you, it's almost a personal question. See when England is on there, just above mid-table, is Scotland included with that? Or is Scotland not on that table?
England is here,
and
Scotland is not
it
participating.
doesn't register?
No.
Okay.
So you're not part of us, Vincent?
Sorry?
No, you're not part of us. You're not part of this group of 38 countries.
No.
We'll make room for you soon.
Okay.
It's only these countries participating. Of course, it's difficult with Scotland, but they are not here. Liechtenstein is, so it's not a matter of size.
Not comparing though.
Okay.
But the thing is, in the Danish point of view, is that the Danish students is managing or achieving high results of this. So this test provides a clear impression that the Danish primary and lower secondary education is grounded in a long-standing educational tradition that values knowledge of economy, all these questions, social, political, and democratic issues, and furthermore promote students' ability to analyze and critically, that's a part of it, reflect upon those subjects. So considering the mediocre math and reading skills almost all the countries in Europe had in the international assessments like TIMSS and PIRLS, I don't know if you've heard of them, but OECDs, you have PISA, Denmark and a lot of all the other countries, in fact, except for South Korea and southeastern countries, they had medical performance. Here, it was quite encouraging, I would say, to discover that the Danish students managed so well. So that perhaps they're not that good at reading and math like the rest of the European countries, but when it comes to democracy and citizenship education, they are very good, extraordinary, I would say. So this indicates a kind of pedagogy, a kind of education system which promote well and create well-informed citizens with huge knowledge on democracy and not at least a well-formed basis for democratic attitudes, decision-making and participation. So we start up very well. But of course, democracy and democratic education is not just about achieving high performance when it comes to knowledge and analytical skills. Preparing children and young people to undertake the roles as democratic citizens is not just a matter of passing on knowledge, as I just said, but also a matter of developing an environment and a context of togetherness, a sense of togetherness, in which the student will encounter political and democratic practices. That was some of the things over. Democracy is not just a matter of learning through education, it is also to experience democratic practices. It is also being a part of a democratic community, be respected as a democratic counterpart that influence on the decision-making process, and even experiencing an open and inviting political environment. That's part of it. So to prepare students to undertake their roles, as democratic citizens, the school in itself should be democratic and provide a democratic sense of togetherness. And that is to say, not just democracy through education, but also democracy in education, schools, teaching methods, and so on. That was some of the things we discussed before. At least it says in the Public School Act in Denmark that the public school shall prepare pupils for participation, joint responsibility, rights and duties in a society based on freedom and democracy, daily activities. So that's the activities, the daily activities. You have to be a citizen, the law says, on the school must therefore be conducted in a spirit of intellectual freedom, equality and democracy. So we also measured the students' perception of openness in the classroom. That's part of their daily activities. The students' perception of influence on decision-making process. So now we are moving from knowledge to gain knowledge to class environment and influence, and as an important part of being a democratic citizen. So let me show you some of the results. These results is not test results. This is questionnaires. So you have to understand it in another way. So this part is based on questionnaires measuring the students' self-efficacy, values and perception. So the aim is to explore and identify and compare young people's attitudes towards. It's about values and attitudes towards social and democratic issues, and furthermore their perception of their everyday life. So if you look at this scale, you will see that. Perhaps I should tell you what it's measuring. It's this is the items that we are asking the students, and 3 of them is concerning the teachers' encouragement and motivation, as we are talking about here, of the student to make up their own mind, express their opinions, and to discuss with people who have different opinions. The students are also asked whether that teachers present several sides of a given issue. There are 2 items which study the students' own preparedness or willingness to bring up political events for discussion in classes. The outcome of the international comparison shows that the Danish students' perception of the classroom is very high. It is in fact extremely high. The Danish students experience the highest degree of openness, achieving 55 scale point, which is much higher than compared to the neighbor countries, Norway and Sweden. 52 for Norway and 51.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Do you think that what you find is connected to the fact that you are the one who made the questionnaire? So you're Danish. So culturally, you asking questions that are more that refer to the question would refer to what you really wanted to ask, and maybe someone in Finland or Indonesia will understand it in another way.
Yeah, you could say that, but it is not a Danish assessment. It's an international assessment. So all the countries participating in this have approved the items. So it's not specific Danish. It's questions everybody's agree on in this context.
Thank you.
I also had a methodological question. Like, how many schools in Denmark were participating?
It was like, oh, I can't remember the number.
It was on the first.
I think
it was. You will respond like that. The democratic expectations are higher than others seem to be the underlying assumption in these kinds of comments. First of all, I would say I always answer that this is a postulate. We don't know that.
Did you test it, or just saying, well, this is maybe not so bad?
Yeah, I'm trying to elaborate on it so you can hear. So I would say that's, first of all, it's a typical Danish assumption. Everybody in Denmark pretty much agree on that. It is very democratic. Our school system is very democratic, and we've just seen it is, to a certain extent, very democratic. But when we come to these kind of questions, we have difficulties in understanding it. So, also because we have a long-standing educational tradition, folk high schools, which always have emphasized have influence, being a human in the right environment, and you have to influence them in the right environment. But here we see something quite different. So, there is nothing in the empirical material that shows that the comment is right, or as you asked for. On the contrary, there's a lot of other results which show the same kind of direction. And I'm doing some qualitative interviews with the students as well. I've just started with that, but they conclude the same. We don't have any experience with actual influence. We have no influence. We have a lot of things to say, and the teachers support us, but they will never listen to us. And that's a very interesting.
It would be interesting to ask politicians, what do you prefer? Not very democratic, but high performance in PISA, or stupid kids, but very democratic? I think around the world they would prefer the South Korean model, very good performance in PISA and not so democratic.
Yes, or the Finnish model is in fact quite the same. South Korea and Finland, they are somehow sharing the same track in some of these questions. So let me dig into the percentage, how the students' actual response on some of these categories, just to show you how extreme these results is. If you ask the Danish students, do you have any influence on the timetable? Where should we put math? Simple questions, it's a simple kind of influence. 76% of the Danish student will say not at all, and they have 4 response categories, and this is the most negative one. If you see the same figures in Norway and Sweden, the same question, only 20% in Norway and 23% in Sweden say not at all. That's a huge difference. Another one is, oh, that was the only thing. But so where I'm going to end this part is, so here you have the 2 scales. Norway and Sweden, they are almost the same places at these 2 tables. Denmark is at the top on the perception of the classroom, and at the bottom on the perception of influence. So, how to understand this discrepancy?
Yeah, I must admit that I got a shock when I read this. Yeah, living in Denmark, I didn't know that, and that's really it's creepy.
Yeah, it is.
But you said it before. Now you can influence it. What kind of classroom should we have? And they'll be like this, and that'll be that, right?
Yeah. Now we have time for discussion again, and I suggest that you have a little conversation with the partners sitting next to you, and then we catch up all together. You can also grab the influence and say, no, we want to discuss in another way.
I want to discuss it with someone from Indonesia.
Yeah, I think it's relevant to discuss the decision or these points here. And some of the important questions might be, how did Denmark end up in a situation like this? Do you recognize this situation in your home countries? In your schools, institutions, wherever you are?
No.
What are the consequences? Is it a problem?
It's depending.
Is it a democratic political problem or is it only a school problem?
It's a problem of society.
It's a problem of society.
At home and
Participating in protest, peaceful protest against laws believed to be unjust. We are talking about active participation, active to promote human rights, activities to protect the environment, activities to benefit people in local communities and so. So this is a question, it's an item concerning, or an instrument concerning active participation. And then you see a remarkable result as well. Denmark is pretty low. So if you ask
Life is
students,
too good over here.
and in Scandinavia it's quite interesting as well, because the Swedish result is pretty much the same as the Danish, but they are doing a little better. But if you see Norway, they are over average.
They're even richer.
And they are even richer. So, but this is a remarkable finding as well. So if you ask them, are you active? Do you participate in your local society? And there's a lot of other instruments which show the same. They are quite what I would describe as passive.
Is the question if they are or if they think it would be right to?
It is that perception of importance. So,
Okay, yeah, okay.
so it's, yeah. So, but these kind of studies are quite difficult to interpret, because there's other studies that shows when they are older, like 20 to 29, they are quite active and quite interesting in politics. So perhaps it will shift. But in this age, where they are by the school, it has a certain influence on the students, that's for sure.
Excuse me. Don't you also think that it can also be low because, I mean, the children are in safe haven. There are very good systems lying around. And when you ask a student then about peaceful protest or whatever, peaceful protests, and you know, the environment in Denmark, in general terms, does not really provoke any student to do that. They are very, you know, the systems here are very good. Couldn't that also influence the result?
It could be an explanation also because of these kind of, the countries up here has another kind of political issues than we have here. But how come Norway is placed there? It's always hard to, and how come we are, the Danish students are at the bottom of, like, let's say, why not like Sweden or something like that? How come they see participating in activities, protest against law? How come it's not important to them?
No, it's not.
Even the Czech Republic, they are very negative in all other aspects, and but here they are beaten by the Danes. So it's hard to interpret, but it shows something about the Danish students' attitudes or temperament of what kind of school and this school togetherness. What is this kind of democratic togetherness in this Danish school promoting? I would say some kind of passivity. They are passive in some ways. Is it good or is it bad? I don't know. Because it's, perhaps it's because they are in heaven, as you say, and they are pretty happy about going to school and so on. But still, if you want to become a democratic citizen, shouldn't you experience something like that? Shouldn't you see the importance of these kinds of matters? I don't know. Yeah.
Who, I know it's maybe living across everything, but who except all of them actually that we are seeing this? Who is seeing this?
Who's seeing
Who are you showing this figures to? Except
to you.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's extremely interesting, and I know it's just like interesting survey, or is it sent to somebody?
It is an international survey made by IEA, that's the International Organization of it. And it's the counterpart to OECD. This is an independent institution.
Yeah, I know that. I just want to know who will have the opportunity to see it and discuss it like we are doing it now.
Everybody, I guess. I am not quite sure I understand your question. Because you can find it on the internet. The EU politicians are using these kind of informations. Even the Danish politicians are quoting this assessment. So,
have you talked to people in Norway and Sweden to see if they understand why they're where they are?
We have some good colleagues in Norway and Sweden, but we haven't in fact discussed this matter. But it's not hard. If you dig into the Norwegian history, you will easily find that they are very embedded in their local communities. So they are working hard at their local communities and participate in many ways compared to the Swedish and Danish students. So there is some kind of tendency in Norway that you're participating in the local environment, and a tendency which you cannot find in Denmark and Sweden. Okay, one more.
Well, the other big influence on... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Another question could be if the pupils have been, students have been participating in a teaching where there has been a political subject and they have been working with that and they have been planning actions to improve whatever the subject was about, like an empowerment.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because that's what I understand by teaching.
Yeah. So there's a lot in Denmark. You're usually not doing these kind of things. If you go to the US, you will see that the school is always participating in the local communities, and we're not doing that in Denmark.
Well, it's a certain kind of didactics to work with empowerment.
Yes, I don't know how to translate that into English. It has been a huge discussion in competencies. Competences, I don't know, action competences, I don't know.
Empowerment or
empowerment, yeah. Yeah. It has been a huge discussion on a theoretical level, but I'm not sure that it's implemented in school. Otherwise, I'm not sure that we would be there. Well, I think I will go on.
Jonas, a suggestion, because I know you have many slides left.
Yeah.
And we have only 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
The last 5 minutes we need for the takeaway fill out. And it's my impression that you
have to understand this. So on the one hand, we have some skilled and knowledgeable students in terms of politics, society, and democracy. We have an open classroom environment, as you can see. And the other side, we have low influence on decision-making process, and we have even some passive children running around doing nothing after school. So, what do we make of this? And I'll just step onto the new. I will try to explain this from the view of educationalization. And the thing is that the students are allowed in the Danish classroom. They are allowed to discuss for the purpose of learning, to improve their knowledge, to learn more. But the educational setting is organized in a way that does not allow what I would describe as political impact and or influence. The students' evaluations of their chances of influence decision reveals that the inclination to engage in a free discussion is staged, managed, and conducted by the teacher, and hence highly educationalized. So to sum up, I found that in the Danish primary and lower secondary education has a certain approach to what we were talking on earlier, democracy and togetherness. Democratic togetherness represents an educationalized sense of togetherness that favors what I would describe as the student as a learning subject, the educational subject. That is what it favors. So togetherness is here for education, learning, and what we describe as build-up in Danish. So we have a certain form of democratic togetherness in Denmark. And I would have told you something about the modern process of educationalization, but I will jump further on, but just tell you that education and pedagogy was an important instrument in order to develop citizens who would support, maintain, and legitimize the re-established order of the welfare system and the ideology of the free world. That's the bottom line of this historical presentation. Just to show you something. So the modern process of educationalization made, and that's a difficult thing to understand here, made the education system still more democratic, this educationalization. And even the new generations became more democratic. However, it also created and constituted this learning subject, or this educational subject. A subject that over the last decades have become even more recognizable and dominant. And what is this educational subject? So we have a socialization or an educationalization which is creating a certain subject, a learning subject or educational subject. And that is on the basis of the humanization and democratization of the Danish society in the period of the post-war. So a learning a subject or educational person is a person who is learning to be. That's a being. And that was UNESCO in 1972 who wrote a huge report on that. It is about becoming a citizen. And this kind of student, or this kind of becoming a citizen, is always in the pursuit of knowledge, skills, and competences. At least are they understood like that by the politicians and the teachers. And what is the aim? To unfold my potential fully. And they are, of course, governed by the teachers. That is the educational subject. And what is the counterpart in this? What are we used to? We're used to, of course, political subject. That a subject that is, I am in the light of my attitudes, temperaments, and feelings, or in the light of my age, gender, background, what we normally see. So these kind of subjects, personalities, are learning to be. These are, and they are endorsed to influence. They are being a citizens, and they are, of course, in the pursuit of liberty, equality, and happiness, what we used to. And they want to make decisions for myself, the groups in society, and they are, of course, governed by their civil and political rights and duties. I'm not saying that this is what's happening at the moment, but somehow we are. It is gaining this perspective. These kind of subjects, you will see them everywhere. You will see a certain way of answering certain questions from also what Thomas told us later, from my perspective, because I am always in the pursuit of unfolding my own potential fully. So I could elaborate on this for a very long time, and that is the main conclusion of my interpretation of the result. That is the creation of a certain subject, or you might say a certain anthropology, a certain way of valuing the world, the society, and the sense of togetherness as a learning subject. So my last question, and that's where I will stop for now, for today, is what is the right balance between the educational and political sense of togetherness? I will slide.
Please. The educational subject is a 14, 15 years old child. And the political subject is the 18, 20 years old young people. That's normal. The answers are normal for 14 and 15 years old girls and boys.
So that is your answer?
That's my answer.
So, Nomi?
I'm
today,
sure that's...
Nomi,
Katsanelson.
okay, yeah.
Nomi Katsanelson, yeah.
Yeah, Nomi today talked about this in a age, I think it's 20 and 22 that have made research. I have been joining research projects which shows that even 30-year-old students or persons have the same kind of attitudes. We even have it